Right now, maschet peah, daf base in the YERUSAHLMI. Maschet peah daf base. So says the Gemara. Shiboiles harishona. Ma'u shetech chayves bepeah. So we learned yesterday that in the first daf in daf aleph, we learned that in order for a piece of land to be chayv bepeah, you have to do maschet tzira, cut the first piece of grain, and the rest of the land is chayv bepeah. What's the halacha in regard to that very piece of the first grain? Is the first grain itself chayv bepeah? You have to separate 1/60th from the first piece of grain itself, or is the first good piece of grain bichlal not chayv bepeah? So what are the tzans? What is the havmin? Efshar loymar ken hi chayves kos the peah bichayves bepeah. The Gemara says this is impossible, since it is the cause to peah. Because again, how does a field become peah? You cut the first piece. The maschet tzira creates a chiyuv on the rest of the rest of the field. So since it's only the cause of the chiyuv, not the effect itself, how can it ever be affected then? If it's just the cause, how can it ever be affected? It's causing others to be affected by its cause, but the cause itself can never be affected. The Maram Fulda says that, he says a little better, he says that the only time when peah, when something can receive a chiyuv peah, like this for example, is when it's connected to the ground. But if it's out of the ground, if it's pulled out of the ground, then there's no chiyuv peah. So since you took the first piece and you cut it, then you did a maschet tzira. So how can you ever have a havamina that it have a chiyuv peah? It's already been removed from the ground. But again, it's the same. It all enters the Gemara and it all makes sense. Okay, next question. Guy cuts the first piece of the shibolis. Guy cuts the first piece of shibolis, and then it gets burnt. Is the field chayv bepeah, or does it have to do a new maschet tzira in order to regain the chiyuv for the rest of the land? So says the Gemara again. I'm reading it again. Says the Gemara, says in the Brisa, Katzar Chetzia v'Machar Mashe Katzar, or Katzar Chetzia v'Yikdish Mashe Katzar, Noten min hameshuyar al hakol. So says the Brisa, if a guy cuts half of the field and he sells it, cuts half of the field and makes it hekdesh, the other half is chayv bepeah. What do we see from here? That even if I'm makdish the katzir that I do, the field is chayv bepeah. Says the Gemara, v'hekdesh lav kesarufu, isn't hekdesh just like being saruf, just like being burnt? So the same effect that being burnt has hekdesh. So what do we see? That even when the object that I did katzir on is no longer in this world, that it's gone, still the land is chayv bepeah. Okay, next question. Kila et sadeu. A guy cut his entire field. So the Marafulda brings a Tosefta, the Rambam brings a Salach L'Maisa. It's a very, very famous Tosefta. It's that when a person is chayv bepeah, when a field is chayv bepeah, so what do? You do katzira, and then you leave the corners for the poor people. What happens if I was over and I did katzira my entire field? So the halacha is that even when it's in omrim, when it's in stacks, when it's already organized, it's also still chayv bepeah. Don't think you escaped the chiyuv just because you did katzir on the entire field and didn't leave anything for the poor people. Even if you made it into mamish bread and you have a big, nice piece of bread, even when it's bread, you're still chayv bepeah until you cut off a portion for the poor people. So the chiyuv never goes away. So the Gemara here asks a very lamdan question. The Gemara asks, Kilo et sadeh, a guy cuts his cuts his entire field. Atamar chazra peah leomrin. So you agree with me that the chiyuv peah is choser. Where does it go back to? To the omrim. So we don't. The chiyuv doesn't just go away. It goes back to the omrim. Ma'u shetachzor peah lektzira shiboiles harishona. So maybe the peah should also go back and fall upon the first piece of shibolos that I did for maschet tzira. right? Because again, what did we say earlier? We said earlier the first piece of grain is not chayv peah. Since it wasn't connected to the ground in b'shas achiyuv, so it's irrelevant to peah. But here, maybe just like the peah falls on all the grains after ktsira when they become omrim, and since this piece, this first shibboleth, also has a shem omrim on it, maybe so the chiyuv would also fall upon it as well, just like it's falling upon all the other fruit, all the other grains. Says the Gemara like this: Amar Rabbi Yosi, Neilach peas omrim mi peas kama. Ma peas kama? V'chazor peah ktsira shibboleth harishonu. Says the Gemara like this. And at the end of the day, we're going to learn how to treat the first shibboleth with regards to omrim, from how to treat it from when it's a kama, in the mishas ktsira. When it's in its first stage, when it's in the kama, when it's all connected to the ground, you said the first shibboleth is got nothing to do with the peah. There's a ptur that happens to it since it's not connected with shas chiyuv. Since that ptur still continues on even when it's omrim, so what mechtezi to suddenly add a chiyuv? Learn from the ptur that took place when it was connected to the ground, when it was b'shas kama, and the Torah was poter it misvara. So stage 2 is a continuation of stage 1, and since stage 1 we say there's a ptur on the shibboleth. Stage 2, which is basically hemshach, it's continuation of stage 1, we shall also be poter. That's why even when guy cuts his whole field and they go from kama to omrim, we still say that even though the chiyuv falls upon the omrim, it will not fall upon the first shibboleth. Hapeah yesh la shiur milematan. So we said the Mishnah. Peah yesh la shiur milematan. Sorry. Okay. So now the Gemara is going to give us two brises that contradict. It says the brisa. Hapeah yesh la shiur milematan ve'en la shiur milematan. So peah, there is a number. Milematan, there is a minimal that you have to bring 1/60th midoraisa, but there is no shiur milamalan. You can give however much you want. Habikurim ve'harayon, bikurim, which is the first grains of the field, ve'harayon, visiting God in Beis Hamikdash, and shiur lo milamalan ve'lo milamatan. Now that's one opinion. Istanatoni, hapeah bikurim ve'harayon, enam shiur lo milamalan ve'lo milamatan. There is no shiur midoraisa. Even if you want to give the smallest amount of grain for peah, you're to midoraisa. The whole idea of 1/60th that the Gemara Masechet Peah Daf Yud on base brings, and a halacha base, is only midrabanan the 1/60th. 1/60th is rabbinical. Midoraisa, a little bit is enough. Yeah? And that's our Mishnah. So again, I'm repeating. One brisa says that there is a shiur milamatan for peah. 1/60th is midoraisa. One opinion says the 1/60th is midrabanan. Midoraisa, you only need a little bit. Ask the Gemara, might not have been min benechon. What is the nafkamina between the two? Says the Gemara, so because tachlis, since you have to always give 1/60th, what does that have to do with their stories and drabanan? It says the Gemara like this: Man demara peah yesh la shiur milamatan ve'en la shiur milaman. If you said that there is no shiur, that there is a shiur milamatan, the 1/60th is deoraisa, and that until you gave 1/60th, you weren't yotze the chiyuv of peah. Ve'en la shiur milamalan. Ma shenosam nostam. Chazal v'hoisif patur b'maisa. I'm reading like the Gra. Look at the Be'er Gra in the Ktav Yad Aleph. On the bottom of your Amen, you'll see I'm reading based on the Gra, not like the Maraful in the Pnei Moshe. Basically, what do we see, guys? That the svara is that since 1/60th is doraisa, if I haven't given still 1/60th, I'm going to be putter for meiser, because meiser is irrelevant in regards to the chetz of the peah. The peah that I'm giving towards the ani, that piece of peah, of course it's not chayv b'meiser. It's got what it is with meiser. It's peah. But that's only if I hold that 1/60th is doraisa. So that whole chunk of grain that's 1/60th of the field is not going to be chayv b'peah. Every meiser in this thing, every time I give it to an ani, that peah itself is not going to be chayv b'meiser. Right? Man demar hapeah ela shiur lo milamatan. Ma shenosan kvar niftar. Chozavois ifchan ma'isrois. The Gemara says, but if you hold like our Mishnah, where there is no shear, not lamata, and 160 is rabbinical. So after I'm given a small portion of yotzmi daraisa, so rabbinically I'm adding to 1/60th. That addition is l'maisa chulin. It's not peah. So it's tevel. It's chayv meiser. Since it's chayv meiser, I'm going to have to be mafresh the masot first from the meiser, from the chatz of the peah, and then I can give the ani, the purpose of the peah. So the nafkamina is going to be whether or not I have to be mafresh truma from the piece of peah itself. If midoraisa, I have to give this 1/60th. I do not need to give truma. If midorabanan I have to give 1/60th, then I will have to give truma because the Torah does not recognize it as peah. The Torah recognizes it as tevel. So I have to be mafresh the truma in order to give it to the poor people. All right, next piece, last piece. Rabbi Yeruchai had a question. Why did the Torah, the Mishnah, right inside, in the Mishnah see things that have no number to them? Enam shiur, things with no numbers. Why did the Mishnah also write down afal sota? And there's a halacha that when you have a sota, she has to drink water and a special kind of afal from Beis Mikdash. And there's no shiur to that. There's no certain amount how much I have to put in midoraisa. But I'm going to tell you an ephah paraduma. Why don't we write down also paraduma? The ephah, the ashes, for these people on the tumas mace, how much we need. But I'm going to tell you on hok yevama, the spit of yevama. How come we don't write that down either? But I'm going to tell you on dama tipo shematzova. Sounds like more like this. The reason we didn't write down all these things, even though they don't have a number to them, lo atinan matnisin elad barim shu musif alihem ve'esh v'asiyasa mitzvah. The Mishnah only wrote down things that have no number, and that by doing this, so there's a mitzvah. Ve'elu afapi shu moisif alihem en b'asiyasa mitzvah. These things that we have, or otherwise, which are the afar, the sota, the ephah paraduma, and the hokah devama, and the damti portion and so on, there is no mitzvah in adding more of the substance itself. There's no number, but there's also no mitzvah. That's why the Mishnah did not write them down. The Mishnah only published things like bikurim, like peah, which have a mitzvah. Even though midoraisa there's no number, if you want to add and keep adding, there's a mitzvah. By the way, the Rambam brings us halach l'maisa. If a person wants to add more peah, there is definitely a mitzvah to do so nowadays. This is the end to daf base in the Masechet peah.